In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. Have you ever been to a funeral? If you have, you've probably heard Jesus' words as recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 14. The first few verses go like this. Don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. For I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, so that where I am, you may be also. And then the conversation goes on, and it's something like, well, Jesus was a carpenter. He's up there in heaven building those mansions, and one day he'll come and gather us all to himself and bring us with him to heaven so that we can live in those mansions. Well, those are nice thoughts. Jesus will come again. We look forward to that, but that's not what he was talking about here. We see in the Gospel of John chapter 20, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb very early in the morning, the first day of the week, and she saw that the stone had been rolled away and the tomb was empty. So she ran to the disciples and told them, and they ran with her and saw that it was empty, and they went away, but Mary stayed there and was weeping, and Jesus showed up. And he said, Mary, and she turned and recognized that it was him. And apparently she wrapped her arms around him to hug him. And Jesus said this. We see it in verse 17 of chapter 20. Stop clinging to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I ascend to my Father and your Father, and my God and your God. Well, Mary Magdalene came announcing to the disciples, I have seen the Lord, and that he had said these things to her. So let's put this together. He said to the disciples, I will go away, but I will come again after I've prepared a place for you, so that where I am, you could be with me also. And then he said to Mary, oh no, you can't hug me now. I still have to ascend to the Father. And so Mary ran and told the disciples what she had seen, just like Jesus asked her to. And Jesus spent the day ascended to the Father to prepare the place so that where he was, we could be with him. And then he did come again, just like he said he would. We see that in chapter 20, verse 19, where it says this. So when it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and when the doors were closed where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in their midst, and he said to them, peace be with you. So we can see that chapter 14, where Jesus was talking to the disciples, what he was saying there was not my second coming so I can take you to live in a bunch of mansions. Some translations for chapter 14, verse 2 says this, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. Now, if you study the Greek, that makes a lot more sense. Jesus said very clearly, I will be in you. In my Father's house, that's where the Father lives. There are many dwelling places. One of those dwelling places is in me. And one of those dwelling places is in you. Yeah, in the Father's house, where the Father lives, where God himself dwells, there are many dwelling places. Every believer is a dwelling place of God, and that's what's being said in chapter 14. And it's that way so that he could be with us Wherever he is, we can be with him. Now there's something to behold today. Unity with him. With him wherever he is, and him with you in everything you do all day today. Behold that, and we'll talk again tomorrow.